Okay, in this video we'll use the quadratic formula to solve this equation. So you could try and factor it, but if you can't factor it, things that multiply to 30 and add to 14, 15 2, no, 6 5, no, not going to work. So factoring's out, so then I can use the quadratic formula. Sometimes when you're using the quadratic formula, it's hard to simplify. And this one isn't too crazy, but hopefully it'll help you out in understanding what to do with larger numbers. Okay, there's our formula. I have to plug numbers in now. So b is a negative 14. B again is a negative 14. Notice the brackets there. Careful with that, because this is going to be a positive later, not a negative. Okay, A is 3, and C is a 10. And A is a 3 again. Okay, so simplifying this, I get a positive 14 plus or minus square root. Negative 14 squared is a positive 196. Careful with that. Minus 120 all over 6. Okay, feeling good so far. 14 plus or minus, that'll be 76 all over 6. Now, a lot of students will just leave the answer there, but this number underneath the square root sign, you can, it's not that you can, you have to simplify that if you can. And when you're simplifying, what you're looking for under a square root is one of the perfect square numbers, like 4 or 9 or 16, 25, 36, etc. One of those numbers that'll evenly divide into 76. Or not easily, but that will divide into 76. Sometimes it's hard to see which of these numbers works. I think in this one it's a 4, but sometimes it's hard to see them. So an easier way to do it is just to do a multiplication tree or a factor tree. And so if you can't see one of these numbers divide into it, you know it's an even number, so you know 2 will go into it, and it'll go into it 38 times. And then 38, you can split that into 2 times 19, and I think that's it. But here now there's two 2's. So the square root of 76 is the same thing as the square root of 2 times 2 times 19. If it's a square root, I can take those two 2's out and leave a 19 inside. So using a factor tree sometimes is helpful in breaking down numbers like that. So in this case, you'd have 14 plus or minus 2 root 19 all over 6. And then here's another thing where you can simplify these. And often students will leave it here. But if each one of these terms, I'll circle them, this or this or this, if all of those numbers can be divided by the same number, you can simplify further. And so what I like to do is this. I'll look at the top two and say, well, 2 will divide evenly into the 14 and in the 2. So factor a 2 out, leaving me with 7 plus or minus root 19. And then on the bottom, 6 is the same thing as 2 times 3. And now here you can see a common factor of 2, which I can eliminate. So my final answer will be 7 plus or minus root 19 all over 3. Okay, so hopefully that helps you in simplifying quadratic equations where you have a little bit larger number there. Doing something like a factor tree helps you identify ways to simplify that number.